The air was thick with the scent of jasmine as he stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights twinkling like diamonds against the velvety blackness of the night sky. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his years bearing down upon him. 62, to be exact. A number that seemed to stare back at him from the mirror each morning, reminding him of the passing of time. He had always been a man of principle, a pillar of his community, a devoted husband and father. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, and lately he found himself struggling with an inner turmoil that threatened to upend everything he thought he knew about himself. It started innocently enough, a chance encounter with a stunning young woman at a charity gala. Her name was Sophia, and she was a free spirit, with piercing green eyes and skin as smooth as silk. They danced the night away, exchanging laughter and stories, and before he knew it, he was hooked. Their affair began in secret, stolen moments stolen from his daily routine. He would leave work early, make up excuses for his wife, and meet Sophia at a discreet location. The thrill of it all was intoxicating, the rush of adrenaline as they explored each other's bodies, the whispered promises of forever in the dead of night. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, he began to feel the weight of his duplicity bearing down upon him. His wife, the love of his life, was still the same kind-hearted woman she had always been, patient, understanding, and devoted. And yet there was Sophia, young, vibrant, and passionate. A reminder that life was full of possibilities, that he wasn't just a relic of the past, but a man with desires and needs that went far beyond what his marriage could provide. As he stood on that balcony, the city lights reflecting off the tears in his eyes, he knew he had reached a crossroads. Oh, he couldn't continue down this path. The guilt was eating away at him like a cancer, threatening to destroy everything he held dear. The dilemma was simple: stay with his wife and risk losing himself in the process, or leave her for Sophia and risk losing the love of his life. He thought back to all the promises he had made, all the vows they had exchanged. He remembered the way she used to laugh at him, the way she still looked at him with adoring eyes. But he also remembered the way Sophia's hands felt on his skin, the way her lips tasted like a sweet, ripe fruit. He took another deep breath, the air filling his lungs as he searched for answers in the darkness. He knew what he had to do, but would he be able to live with himself afterwards? As he stood there, the city lights twinkling like stars in the night sky, he made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. The older man's dilemma was far from resolved, but he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't keep living in the shadows. It was time to face the music, to confront his true desires and values, and see what lay on the other side. As he stood there, the city lights twinkling like stars in the night sky, he made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. He took one last look at the city below, then turned back to his apartment and walked inside. The silence was oppressive, but he knew what he had to do. He went to his study and sat down at his desk, pulling out a piece of paper and a pen. He began to write, the words flowing onto the page like blood from an open wound. "I'm leaving," he wrote. "I know it's not easy, but I have to be honest with myself and with you. I've been living in the shadows for too long, and it's time for me to take control of my life." He read over what he had written, his heart heavy with regret. He knew that this would hurt his wife, but he also knew that he couldn't continue down this path. He got up from his desk and walked out into the living room. His wife was sitting on the couch, reading a book. She looked up as he approached her. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft with concern. He took a deep breath before speaking. "I've been having an affair," he said, the words tumbling out of his mouth like rocks from a landslide. "And I'm leaving." His wife's eyes widened in shock and then filled with tears. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head, feeling the weight of his guilt bearing down upon him. "I don't know," he said. "I just do." She nodded slowly as if accepting the inevitable. "Okay," she said. "If that's what you want to do, then I'll let you go." He felt a pang of regret at her words, but he knew it was too late now. He had made his decision, and there was no going back. "I'm sorry," he said, feeling the tears prick at the corners of his eyes. She nodded again, this time with a hint of sadness in her voice. "I'll always love you," she said, but I deserve better than to be left for someone else." He felt like he had been punched in the gut, but he knew that it was true. He had hurt her, and there was no taking it back. "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm sorry." She nodded once more, then got up from the couch and walked out of the room without looking back at him. He watched her go, feeling like he was losing everything that truly mattered in his life. He knew that he had made a mistake, but he also knew that it was too late to turn back now. As he stood there, alone in his apartment, he felt the weight of his guilt bearing down upon him. He knew that he would have to live with this decision for the rest of his life, and that it would haunt him forever. But as he looked out at the city below, he saw a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Maybe, just maybe, there was still time to make things right.